Big tobacco and other forces are using lobbying and social engineering to stop vaping. Let me be clear from the start of this, I do not vape and I have no horse in this race at all. I'm just sharing my research from the topic. Vaping is considered the future of smoking for a lot of people. Many studies point out that it is healthier due to it being vaporized glycerin along with pure nicotine and flavoring, as opposed to cigarettes which fill you with tons of toxic chemicals when you inhale their partially combusted substances. Many studies have shown this. Some have shown it may not be quite as healthy as some tout, but I'm not here to write a research paper, I'll let you do your own research. So let's talk lobbying first, then we'll touch on the abstract juicy stuff after. Part 1. Lobbying. Tobacco and pharmaceutical companies, and even the government maybe, are dumping tons of money into lobbying to keep vaping down. First, we all need to accept a fundamental truth. Tobacco companies do not care about your health. They even intentionally push the product to children. They push a product that kills people for money, so anything they lobby behind is obviously just for profit and self-interest. Spoiler alert, most companies put profit above anything else. Tobacco companies lobby for bans and restrictions on vaping that smaller scale projects couldn't survive but that they could easily work around themselves. They push for restrictions on the vapes that are modular and that use cheap homemade juices and want their cigarette-shaped vapes to be passed through. Pharmaceutical companies are lobbying against vaping because they sell the products designed to get people to stop smoking like Nicorette gum and nicotine patches. Vaping cuts into their profits as well. And last but not least, the US government. While it is possible to believe that the government are lobbying against e-cigs because they dislike tobacco products as a whole, you gotta understand something. Tobacco products create around $500 billion a year in tax revenue for the US government, so they do have a horse in this race. Part 2. Social engineering. So let's address the social stigma surrounding the vaping community and the chicanery that put it there. I'm sure you've noticed by now the vaping stereotype that exists. That is for the neckbeard loner weirdo types without girlfriends and that are probably in the closet. You see, social pressures control herds of people passively without having to actively police their habits because we just do it to each other instead. Think about Nixon's war on drugs as a prime example of using social engineering to fight a battle. So conveniently, as soon as vaping becomes a real risk to potential profits, social media appears stigmatizing it. Do you think this is really the first time something like this has happened? Let me compare that to something else you may be familiar with. The pro-Trump, anti-Clinton, Russian propaganda pushed on Facebook and other websites during his campaign. The reasoning for it is self-interest of the Russian government, of course. Clinton probably wouldn't play ball with Russia at all while Trump might. So pushed social engineering, paid for by Russia, successfully made some people choose Trump over Clinton, or at least reaffirm their beliefs. Now here's something funny. The United States has done this countless times in other countries. We actively interfere with other elections, but why do we have such a double standard about this? But you know this happens all the time, right? Companies, countries, bands, churches, any sort of entity will try to steer people to their interest, both publicly and privately. Tons of beliefs, prejudices, and opinions you probably hold were spoon-fed to you by people with ulterior motives. There's nothing weird about vaping. It doesn't stop you from getting a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or make you an outcast, secretly gay, or anything else. It's cheaper, more than likely healthier, and undermines companies that kill humanity and profit off of it. Now before I end this video, I should mention this is not a vaping ad. There is another side to this argument. Vaping is growing into its own monster, of course, and they'll do their best to swing studies in their direction too. So aside from the fringe evidence about traces of possible problems and toxins in vaping, here is what is for certain. This is what is real. All forms of nicotine cause cardiovascular disease. There's no form of nicotine that is healthy for you. Most smokers die from cardiovascular problems, not lung problems. All I'm saying is we get to peer in and see the clockwork of our democratic system. Companies undermining ingenuity and our supposed democratic system for profit. This wheel of companies vying for power against each other is nothing new and is the basis of social groups, democratic or not. So really it's not even a conspiracy. This is just how we humans control each other and greedily grasp for power and wealth. Some not so powerful folks are taking money from the powerful folks and it's leading to increased social mobility, but decreased profits to the older powers that be. But even if vaping fully replaced the tobacco industry, it's important to note it would almost certainly become just as corrupt. There's no good guy, just an underdog in the situation. Welcome to Earth, aka the dumpster fire, everyone.
Tobacco versus vaping. Well, there's no question that vaping is a disruptive technology. It is, according to the Royal College of Physicians, 95% less harmful than smoking. It doesn't burn tobacco, and that's really the problem. It's the so-called products of combustion that lead to tar and other toxins that cause lung cancer, COPD, other lung diseases, cardiovascular problems. And vaping, e-cigarettes, contains nicotine, which is not harmful to otherwise healthy people, and propylene glycol. In the short term, there's no risks to propylene glycol. We're not sure about long term. We have no reason to think there is, but that needs to be followed. But the key part is that compared to cigarettes, it's a relative risk. It is so much less risky. And frankly, everyone who smokes should be encouraged to switch.
All right.